And for those of you who don't know, Mayor Johnson has a secret gift room that is not given access to the public or for access to the Office of Inspector General.
The courtroom fell into stunned silence as a cartel leader made explosive testimonies about Chicago's mayor. Apparently, Mayor Johnson had been receiving bribes and luxury gifts to protect cartel operations throughout the city. But these shocking corruption allegations were just the surface. What the witness revealed next will leave you terrified. The testimony that shook Chicago. 5 minutes ago, yes, you heard that correctly. Just 5 minutes ago, inside a packed federal courtroom, a cartel leader dropped a bombshell that is now reverberating across Chicago, Washington, and every American city that has ever struggled under the weight of corruption. In a sworn testimony that stunned prosecutors and defense attorneys alike, the name that came out of his mouth wasn't a rival gangster, wasn't another trafficker, wasn't even a border official. No, the name was Chicago's own Mayor Brandon Johnson. This is not a drill. This is not speculation. A man tied to the most ruthless narco organization on the planet, a group with blood on its hands and drugs flooding every corner of America, has just implicated the highest elected official in the Windy City. And if you think this is just another story about a crooked politician, think again. Because what we are uncovering tonight, what you are about to see and hear, is a chain of revelations so shocking, so brazen, and so infuriating that it forces us to ask the unthinkable. Is the leadership of one of America's largest cities entangled with the very cartels our federal government claims to be fighting? And make no mistake, the cartel boss didn't just mumble the name. He laid it out clearly under oath, with enough context to make the courtroom gasp. The shocking part? This revelation ties directly into something we've been covering for months: the secretive gift room inside City Hall. A chamber that investigators say has been stocked with high-priced luxury goods and contraband-like items, all received under the guise of official presence.
This man has been nothing but corrupt since the moment he came into office. And he's gonna walk off with millions.
Now think about that for a second. A city ranked #1 in corruption year after year, a mayor already caught in scandals about undeclared Gucci bags and whiskey bottles, suddenly finds his name tossed out by a Sinaloa-linked operative during testimony. You don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to realize something doesn't add up here. But the most shocking part of this interview that you're about to see, it's not even the gifts. It's not the cufflinks, not the luxury purses. No, the most shocking part is how these testimonies begin to paint a picture of quid pro quo at the highest levels. A city government that looks less like an administration for the people and more like a local franchise of a cartel-run empire. Picture this: the sterile walls of a federal courtroom, the flag draped behind the judge, reporters crowded shoulder to shoulder, their pens scratching faster than they can think. On the witness stand, a man whose past is soaked in blood and drug money. A lieutenant once loyal to the Sinaloa cartel, now turned witness in hopes of shaving years off a life sentence. His voice is steady, accented but clear, as the prosecutor presses him. Who, in your dealings here in the United States, provided protection for your shipments? He hesitates, shifts in his seat, looks to the judge, then back to the prosecutor. The room is silent. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. And then he says it. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago. Gasps, audible gasps. Some reporters literally drop their pens. The defense attorney jumps to his feet, objecting furiously, but the words have already landed like dynamite. And in that single instant, the trajectory of this trial, and perhaps the trajectory of Chicago politics, changes forever. Here's the problem for Mayor Johnson. This isn't an isolated claim. It's not coming out of nowhere. For months, whispers of corruption have been circling City Hall like vultures. And thanks to an Inspector General's report, we know those whispers had substance. Investigators revealed a hidden City Hall gift room, a literal stockpile of luxury items tucked away behind locked doors, far from the eyes of the public. The list of items sounds less like the possessions of a mayor and more like the spoils of a mob boss. Gucci bags, Hugo Boss cufflinks, Givenchy accessories, expensive bottles of whiskey, and even size 14 designer shoes.
Well, a new watchdog report revealing Mayor Johnson has gotten some expensive gifts while in office.
But investigators say they had to go undercover to find out what they were.
Now think about how this looks in the context of cartel infiltration. Cartels don't just buy influence with bags of cash. They're more sophisticated. They use gifts, perks, donations, favors, little tokens that build into obligations. Suddenly, a Gucci tote bag isn't just a tote bag, it's a down payment. And when investigators tried to access this gift room, what did they get? Stonewalled. They were told to schedule an appointment, giving City Hall time to sanitize what was inside. That is not transparency. That is cover-up. And it raises the haunting question: were some of those gifts tied to cartel operatives' looking to secure the mayor's silence or cooperation. To understand the gravity of this, you need to see the bigger picture. The Sinaloa Cartel is not some abstract Mexican gang operating in the shadows of the desert. They are here, on our soil, in our neighborhoods, and federal agents have been making this clear. In a recent surge, the DEA arrested 617 cartel-linked suspects across 23 U.S. field divisions. Among them, 171 right here in New England. Guns, cash, and nearly half a ton of fentanyl were seized, enough to kill millions.
The DEA says all those arrested were tied to the Sinaloa Cartel. They're our public enemy number one in New England.
Consider the implications. If cartels have that level of penetration in Boston and Vermont and Connecticut, why wouldn't they seek leverage in Chicago, America's third largest city and historically one of the most corrupt? It would be criminal malpractice not to. And in fact, during another major bust in the Pacific Northwest, DEA agents traced operations back to Sinaloa itself, naming brothers Rosario and Francisco Camargo Banuelos as ringleaders. From Mexico, they directed shipments of meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl into U.S. cities.
From their base in Sinaloa, both these men directed this group that dealt death and despair in our community. This is what we expect of the Sinaloa Cartel.
This is the reality. Cartels operate like multinational corporations. They expand markets, they buy protection, they invest in politicians the way companies invest in lobbyists. The difference is, instead of lobbying for tax breaks, they lobby for blind eyes and safe passage. And what does Brandon Johnson do when confronted with these allegations? Does he produce receipts, open the doors, welcome the investigators in? No, he goes on the offensive against reality itself. Listen to how he dismissed the Inspector General's findings.
Do not be afraid, Chicago. Whether it's an invitation or a subpoena, I'm always going to stand up for the interests of working people.
That sounds noble, right? But look closely. He doesn't deny the gifts. He doesn't explain them. He rebrands the scandal as an attack on working people. That's not an answer. It's spin. And when pressed further, he dragged in comparisons to Confederacy, to slavery, to colonialism, painting himself as a victim of historical oppression because someone dared to ask about cufflinks and whiskey. This isn't leadership. This is obfuscation. It's the exact playbook cartels rely on. Keep the public distracted, keep investigators bogged down in red tape, and keep the luxury goods flowing. Now here's why this matters to you. Because this isn't just a Chicago problem, it's an American problem. Every city where cartels operate, every neighborhood where fentanyl kills another young person, every community that loses another child to counterfeit pills. That's where this corruption lands. Think about the parents in Boston whose kids were poisoned by fake Adderall pressed with fentanyl. Think about the Seattle families who lost loved ones to overdoses from cartel-supplied heroin. Think about the officers in New England risking their lives during massive raids, only to know that in cities like Chicago, politicians may be quietly cutting deals with the very organizations they're fighting. When corruption is local, cartels are global. And when the mayor of one of America's largest cities is implicated, it's no longer just speculation. It's evidence of a system so rotten that it may already be too late to root it out without drastic change. And remember, this isn't Johnson's first brush with ethical disaster. He's already been caught accepting campaign donations from contractors he wasn't supposed to take money from. He's already securing a taxpayer-backed pension estimated to hit $5 million. Now, with his name spilling from the lips of a cartel witness, the question becomes unavoidable. Is Brandon Johnson serving the public or serving the cartels? Now that courtroom revelation was just the tip of the iceberg, because what federal agents discovered next would prove that this corruption runs deeper than anyone imagined, and the trail leads straight to America's most dangerous enemies: cartels, corruption, and the cost to America. When the cartel leader uttered Brandon Johnson's name in open court, the nation gasped. But that was just the spark. What followed was a firestorm of revelations stretching far beyond Chicago's city limits. Because here's the truth. The Sinaloa Cartel is not some distant threat lurking south of the border. It is here, inside our schools, inside our hospitals, and yes, increasingly inside our politics. And if you were stunned by the courtroom testimony, this will leave you furious, because the depth of this infiltration is staggering. Cartels aren't just bribing cops in Mexico. They're targeting the very cities where they traffic their poison. And the people who are supposed to protect us, the politicians we elect, are looking the other way while their gift closets and campaign accounts quietly fill up. Just days before the courtroom bombshell, the DEA announced a historic operation, a massive nationwide crackdown against the Sinaloa Cartel. It was called a DEA surge, and the results were jaw-dropping.
A massive nationwide crackdown on the deadly Sinaloa Cartel has led to more than 600 arrests, officials said. The week-long operation included 171 suspects in New England, and targeted one of the world's most powerful drug trafficking organizations. The Drug Enforcement Administration announced Monday that from August 25th to 29th, agents arrested 617 people linked to the cartel across 23 U.S. field divisions.
617 arrests, 23 field divisions, and among the seizures, nearly half a ton of fentanyl powder, over 2 tons of meth, and thousands of counterfeit pills designed to trick American kids into swallowing death. Think about what that means. 617 cartel operatives embedded in our communities, living side by side with American families. This isn't an abstract war happening in another country. This is a siege inside our own neighborhoods. And while law enforcement is breaking its back to dismantle these networks, the mayor of Chicago is busy defending a gift closet stocked with Gucci bags and whiskey bottles. But if you want to see just how high the cartel's influence goes, look no further than the case of Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia, one of the co-founders of the Sinaloa cartel and El Chapo's longtime partner.
As you've heard, drug kingpin Ismael Zambada Garcia, also known as El Mayo, has confessed to a lifetime of crime in service to the Sinaloa cartel, a foreign terrorist organization. Thanks to the relentless work of our prosecutors and our federal agents, El Mayo will spend the rest of his life behind bars. He will die in a U.S. federal prison where he belongs.
El Mayo confessed to a lifetime of crime, murders, bribes, trafficking, terror. And how did the cartel secure its empire? By buying politicians and law enforcement on both sides of the border. Pam Bondi didn't mince words. El Mayo brutally murdered multiple people and flooded our country with drugs, while bribing officials who looked the other way. Now let's connect the dots. If El Mayo could bribe Mexican politicians, if El Chapo could corrupt police forces, why on earth should we believe Chicago's mayor is somehow immune? Especially when his name just fell out of the mouth of a cartel witness under oath. The heat didn't just come from the courtroom, it came from Congress too. In a hearing that has since gone viral, a Texas representative grilled Brandon Johnson directly about his gift closet.
Mayor Johnson has a secret gift room that is not given access to the public or for access to the Office of Inspector General. On June 12th,
2023.
On June 12th, 2023, you received Hugo Boss cufflinks and a personalized Mont Blanc pin. Do you know who gave you those?
Johnson tried to wriggle out of it, insisting the gifts weren't personal, but belonged to the city of Chicago. Yet he couldn't or wouldn't name the donors. Gucci bags, Kate Spade purses, Hugo Boss cufflinks. He admits they exist, but won't say who gave them. And here's where it gets chilling. One of the cartel's key strategies, documented by investigators, is funneling gifts and perks to officials who can grease the wheels of operations. The representative's question cut right to the bone. Do you know who gave the city of Chicago those gifts? Johnson's answer: deflection, evasion, non-denial, denial. Now ask yourself, if these gifts had nothing to hide, why can't the mayor say where they came from? Why the secrecy? Why the locked gift closet? Meanwhile, out on the West Coast, federal agents were fighting a very different battle. In Seattle, the DEA took down a Sinaloa-linked operation that had pumped nearly 7 million lethal doses of fentanyl into the Pacific Northwest.
This Sinaloa cartel-affiliated group trafficked an extremely large quantity of drugs. In this case, we seized 484 pounds of methamphetamine, 30 pounds of cocaine, 8 pounds of heroin, over 217,000 fentanyl pills, and 197,000 pounds of powder fentanyl. The 269 pounds of fentanyl pills and powder seized in this case could have yielded a staggering 6.9 million lethal doses.
6.9 million lethal doses, enough to wipe out every man, woman, and child in the Puget Sound region. And how did the cartel do it? By hiding drugs in trucks, by bribing drivers, by exploiting every crack in the border system. The agents made it clear, the Sinaloa cartel isn't just a drug network, it's a terrorist organization. They arm themselves like soldiers, they infiltrate like spies, and they corrupt like mobsters. Now overlay that with the revelations in Chicago. If the cartel can smuggle millions of doses into Seattle, if they can bribe drivers in California, why wouldn't they also be sending Gucci bags and cufflinks to Chicago? But this isn't just about numbers. This is about lives, because behind every statistic is a family broken by loss. Take the case of counterfeit pills. DEA agents in New England discovered cartels were pressing fentanyl into fake Adderall tablets and selling them on social media. Parents thought their kids were studying for exams. Instead, they were swallowing poison. One agent admitted, "I'm a DEA agent and I cannot tell the difference between a fake one and a real one. If the experts can't tell, what chance do our kids have?" Now picture those grieving parents watching Mayor Johnson on live television, dodging questions about Gucci tote bags. What message does that send? That while their children die from cartel poison, their leaders are busy modeling luxury accessories gifted in secrecy. So let's connect the pattern. Cartel bosses confess to decades of bribery. Nationwide crackdowns prove the cartel has operatives in every region of America. DEA agents seize millions of doses meant for our kids. And the mayor of Chicago, a city ranked the most corrupt in the nation, is caught hoarding a secret stash of gifts while a cartel witness names him in court. Is it any wonder people are asking whether our politicians are being funded, or at least influenced, by the cartels themselves? And remember, this isn't the first time we've seen this playbook. Former mayors, governors, even federal officials have been caught in corruption scandals tied to organized crime. Cartels thrive not just on drugs, but on the rot of political cowardice. Here's the final, most painful truth. While politicians play games, America is paying the price in blood. Fentanyl overdoses are now the leading cause of death for young people aged 18 to 45. Think about that. Not cancer, not car accidents, not COVID. Fentanyl. And where does it come from? Sinaloa, Jalisco. Cartels who press it, package it, and push it across the border and into cities like Chicago. When a cartel witness names Brandon Johnson in court, when Congress grills him about his secret gift closet, and when parents bury children poisoned by counterfeit pills, the connection is impossible to ignore. This is bigger than one courtroom, bigger than one city. This is a fight for the very soul of America. Because if the cartels have their claws in Chicago's mayor, what makes you think your city is safe? And now, as the evidence mounts and the investigations intensify, America faces a moment of reckoning. Because this isn't just about one corrupt mayor anymore. It's about whether we'll let our cities become cartel strongholds or finally fight back. The fallout and the fight for America's future. When the cartel witness named Brandon Johnson in court, the headlines screamed. When the Inspector General's report revealed a secret gift closet inside City Hall, the watchdogs barked. And when the DEA's nationwide surge netted more than 600 cartel arrests, the public gasped. But this isn't about gasps anymore. It's about consequences. It's about what happens when corruption at the top collides with the most dangerous criminal organization in the world. Because the fallout from this scandal doesn't just stain the reputation of one city. It threatens the future of every American community. For years, U.S. officials debated whether drug cartels should be labeled terrorist organizations. That debate is over. The Trump administration moved decisively, designating groups like MS-13, CJN, and Sinaloa as foreign terrorist organizations. Why? Because their methods are indistinguishable from those of Al-Qaeda or ISIS. Mass killings, military-grade weapons, intimidation campaigns, and cross-border infiltration.
Just to give you a few examples. Under President Trump's the United States State Department designated the Sinaloa cartel, together with 5 other cartels and MS-13 and TDA, as foreign terrorist organizations due to the serious threat that they pose to our national security.
Once you understand cartels as terrorists, the Chicago scandal looks even darker. Because when a cartel witness points to a U.S. mayor, it's not just bribery anymore. It's collaboration with a terrorist enterprise. It's treason against the safety of the American people. But the web stretches even further. Behind the cartels lurks another shadow: China. Experts have revealed the Chinese companies shipped the precursor chemicals for fentanyl to Mexico, where cartel chemists press them into counterfeit pills. The cartels then smuggle the pills into the U.S., and the profits are laundered through Chinese banks.
The bottom line is this is a Chinese operation. The drug cartels are the junior partners. The precursor chemicals, as about everybody now knows, come from China, but they're offloaded at the Port of Manzanillo in Mexico, which is run by a Chinese company. Those precursors are shipped up north, where the DEA says 2,000 Chinese chemists happen to be who turn this into the deadly cocktail of fentanyl.
Think about that. A hostile foreign power working hand in hand with cartels to poison Americans. And in the middle of this deadly triangle, a Chicago mayor is caught stockpiling luxury gifts and refusing to disclose the donors. What happens when the money trail leads not just to Sinaloa, but to Beijing? How deep does this rot go? Let's not forget Johnson's own policies. As exposed during congressional hearings, he openly supports sanctuary city protections, free healthcare for illegal aliens, taxpayer-funded abortions, and even the idea of non-citizens voting in local elections. While Chicago bleeds from cartel-supplied drugs, Johnson is bending over backwards to make the city more attractive to undocumented migrants, some of whom, investigators warn, are exploited as cartel couriers and foot soldiers. The hypocrisy is nauseating. On one hand, Johnson claims to champion working people. On the other, he accepts designer gifts with no accountability, while his city suffers overdose deaths, violent crime, and cartel infiltration. Chicago doesn't need a mayor who trolls on Twitter and dodges subpoenas. It needs a leader who will stand up to cartels, not invite them into the back door of City Hall. Let's humanize this, because the numbers, millions of pills, billions in profits, thousands of arrests, can feel abstract, but the consequences are painfully real. In Franklin, New Hampshire, 27 suspects tied to Sinaloa were arrested after a 3-month investigation. Among the evidence seized, counterfeit fentanyl pills stamped with the cartel's logo. Those pills weren't heading to Mexico. They were heading to high schools, college campuses, and suburban homes. In Seattle, agents described an arsenal of firearms seized from cartel operatives: rifles, pistols, extended magazines, tools of war. These weren't hobbyists. These were soldiers operating on American soil. And in Chicago, families attend funerals for overdose victims week after week, while their mayor waves away accountability with jokes about t-shirts and size 14 shoes. The disconnect is enraging. The victims don't care whether the gifts were logged under City of Chicago or Mayor Johnson. They care that their children are dying while their leaders are living like emperors. Some analysts have raised another disturbing angle: the role of powerful financiers. Conservative watchdogs have pointed to organizations funded by billionaires like George Soros, alleging that some of these groups indirectly support radical protests, destabilization efforts, and even soft-on-crime policies that benefit cartels.
RICO is a statute was passed in 1970 to target organized crime and individuals who were financing and supporting criminal activity, because what was happening is they were arresting the guy on the street, but the guys that were behind it, that were organizing it and financing it, weren't getting arrested.
The implication? It's not just cartels greasing palms. It's networks of global elites funding policies that weaken law enforcement, protect sanctuary cities, and create the very environments cartels thrive in. If Soros can bankroll district attorneys who refuse to prosecute drug crimes, and if cartels can bankroll mayors through luxury gifts, what chance does the average American family have? So where does this leave Brandon Johnson? Already under fire for his mishandling of city finances, already criticized for rising crime, already mocked for comparing subpoenas to Confederate invasions, now he is facing the biggest scandal of his career. The calls for his resignation are growing louder. Federal investigators are circling. The court of public opinion is turning against him. And yet, like so many Chicago politicians before him, he clings to power, betting that outrage will fade and the public will move on. But this isn't just about one man. It's about a culture. Chicago is ranked as the most corrupt city in America for years, racking up scandal after scandal. And if the cartel witness is to be believed, Johnson is simply the latest player in a long-running game where the stakes are measured not in dollars, but in lives. So what comes next? That's up to us. We can shrug, chalk it up as just another Chicago scandal, and wait for the next overdose statistics to roll in. Or we can demand accountability, not just from Brandon Johnson, but from every politician who hides gifts, deflects questions, and treats cartel infiltration like a joke. We can insist that cartels be treated as terrorists, that politicians who collaborate with them face charges of treason, and that foreign governments supplying precursors be held accountable. Because this isn't just about Chicago, it's about New England, it's about Seattle, it's about every city where fentanyl pills end up in a teenager's backpack, where cartel operatives move in next door, where political leaders get cozy with gifts instead of cracking down on corruption. The cartel witness said the words out loud. Brandon Johnson. The courtroom gasped. America heard. Now the question is simple. Will we act? Or will we, like too many leaders before us, look the other way while the cartels laugh, the politicians cash out, and the people pay the ultimate price? This is the fallout, and unless something changes, this is America's future. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.